Hi guys, Sharon Lewin here from School Corridor, and as I promised, I'm going to step off the SPMDS tonight because I think people are tired of listening to SPMDS, and it's the end of the term, and I think we're all tired. So tonight, I just want to do the timeline. I'm going to give a summary of the timeline of the SPMDS process. Okay, so that should go pretty quickly. And if you're online, hello, nice to have you here. I've got my water and my coffee and everything else sorted. Okay, you can see the background. My desk looks a bit in my car. But yeah, this is end of term. So we're ending off the session, the term, I think. We're going to end it off now with SPMDS, and I'm just going to give you the timeline because I'm sure you know what to do already. And I think people are just waiting to start on the leadership and management and discipline issues and so forth. Okay. Hi Keith, thanks for coming in online. And Keith, congratulations on your promotion as the deputy principal at Westford High School. What an achievement. I'm so glad, you know, you've got all the qualities, all the attributes, all the competencies, all the skills to be one of our senior leaders, and I almost jumped right out of my skin when I heard that you are now the deputy principal of Westerford High School. So may you continue to do amazing work, and yes, remain the person that you are, the authentic person that you are, and may the staff enjoy working with you and learning with you. Okay, so we still need to pop some champagne at some point. All right. Now, as I explained, I'm just going to do the timeline for the SPMDS. So it's supposed to be a pretty short session. So let me just start and say, I think I'm not going to repeat because I did 2 sessions on SPMDS, right? And I explained the process. And I think perhaps it's my own anxiety, my own nervousness about, you know, colleagues not understanding the shifts in the regulations, and that is probably why I'm nagging a bit about the SPMDS. But let's jump into the timeline. Now remember that all your public service staff, they have their performance management system is called SPMDS. Their performance management cycle starts on the 1st of April and it ends on the 31st of March the following year. It's different to the IQNS. They follow the financial cycle, right? That's important. And then at the beginning of the cycle, you must have the following 3 documents in place. You must, of course, have the job description on file. And then every year, your public service employees must sign a new performance agreement, okay, which is also commonly called a work plan. And here in the Western Cape, we know it as Annexure A. Now, I've spoken in the previous sessions about what that document contains. So you must have a performance agreement. That performance agreement must be signed, completed and signed off by the latest 31st of May, according to the regulation. Okay? But just bear in mind that all education departments have their own internal dates, and the regulation allows for that. So the latest date that your performance agreement can be signed off is the 31st of May, subject, of course, to your education department's internal dates. So that's the one document. And then, of course, you must have on file the professional development plan. That is the development needs of your employees. Okay. What is very important is that if those documents are not on file, if anybody should check on the files, or if the department asks you to bring, you know, to bring along the file so that it can be monitored, and those documents are not signed and not dated, then you are compromising the process, one, and your public service employee may have to forfeit their salary progression of 1.5%. Remember, your public service employees, if they do satisfactory work, if their work is, you know, according to the prescripts, then they will get a salary progression of 1.5%. And then if the employee scores an overall 4, then the employee may stay, but may be in line for a performance bonus. Now, if those two documents that I mentioned now, your performance agreement and the professional or personal development plan, if those two documents are not on file, then you may be compromising the employees, because they will not get that 1.5% salary progression if they still qualify for the salary progression, and if they are potential nominees for the cash bonus, they may also be compromised in that regard. So that's the first step. Then, as part of the timeline, we have 4 reviews, right? So there must be 4 performance reviews. There are 2 performance reviews that are compulsory, right? So for the first quarter, you must do a review, but that review can be an oral review, and you don't have to minute that, you don't have to have it in writing. But your second review, which is your mid-year review, right, after 6 months, that's from the 1st of April to 30th of September, that review that you have with your employees there must be a meeting, and that meeting must be minuted, so it must be done in writing, okay? And when you do that review, you must complete a document here in the Western Cape called Annexure C1. Now, that C1 document is similar to a progress report, where you will stipulate all the person's KRAs, the key result areas, and then you and the employee will have a discussion about the employee's progress, okay? So if the progress is satisfactory, then obviously there's no problem, the person can just continue. But if there are snags, if there are problems, then that is when you as supervisor will have to discuss a support plan in order to help that person, perform better in his or her job, okay? What I advise here in our district is that when you do that process, that you also score the person. Now remember, every employee must get an overall score of 3. It must be an overall score of 3, which means the person's score must be 100%. That's one of the challenging areas, okay? In the previous system, we didn't have the same kind of coding. So now the person, if you score 1 or a 2, overall 1 or 2, then that employee is underperforming or poor performing. So every single employee must get or achieve an overall 3, okay? So it's a good idea to use the C2, which is the other form, just to score the person and show him or her, the areas for development, or the areas that you're concerned about, or even the areas that you think the person is excelling in. So that is sort of just to help the process, okay? So in summary, that second review must be in writing and it must be on file. Then you have a third review between October and December. That is similar to the second quarter review. That one can just be done orally, so you can have a discussion. You don't have to minute that discussion and that review. And then, of course, you do the final review, right? So the final review or the annual review will take into account the person's performance for the entire cycle. So the 2 main reviews is the mid-year review, which is done by September, and then, of course, your annual review, which will take into account everything that was done during the course of that performance cycle. Okay, let me just see who's online, and then just let me know, because I dropped my camera a bit, so I don't know how much neck you can see here, how much eye you can see. Okay, right. Keith says thank you. Yes, Keith, you deserve everything I said. And then Walter says, hi Walter, nice to have you back here. Walter says, Shannon, are the independent schools subject to the same PMDS regulation? No, Walter, remember the independent schools are not, they're not, they're not compelled to follow the regulations, okay? It only applies to public ordinary schools. But what I find, especially in our district, is that the independent schools like the performance management systems that we have. For example, we have for the SPMDS. So what their boards or their governing bodies will do is use our systems and then tailor it to suit their needs. Okay, which is not a bad idea. But in short, your question is, do they have to comply? No, it only applies to your public ordinary schools. Okay, and then of course Helen Williams joined. Hi Helen, my goodness, I was bridesmaid for Helen years ago. Thanks for coming online, Helen. You must ask me some questions. Okay, so that's on the review. And in the third part, remember I'm doing the timeline of the SPMDS. So I've spoken to that. The annual review, like I said, is over the entire cycle, and that also will help you now to score the employee, right? Because you must now attach a rating to the person's performance. And that scoring document is called Annexure C2. And I think I've referenced it in the other sessions where I said that that document is an Excel document. So you will score the person from 1 to 4 for each of the KRAs. And then hopefully you'll get an overall 3. And if you watch the other sessions, remember I mentioned that there are no decimals. So you can't have 3.2, 3.4, and so forth. Those decimals will then just fall away, or I think if it's 3.8, 3.9, then it can be converted to a 4. Okay? Yeah, so those are the reviews. And then once you've done the annual review and you've now scored the employee, then the employee, of course, will have to agree with you that that is a fair reflection of what the person has done. And then you have to conduct a moderation process. So you have to establish a moderation committee according to the regulation. And the committee must just, they need to ensure that the prescripts were followed, that you have complied with the prescripts, and that the process was fair. And then once that is done, the moderation committee also has to submit a report. Okay, that's important, because I think I mentioned in the previous sessions that when people submitted documents, then we get calls from the schools and people will start complaining about certain steps that have been omitted. Now, you may not omit any of the steps that I've just mentioned here, because then you're making yourself guilty of a labor infraction, okay? And then the employee does have grounds to lodge a grievance or lodge a dispute. So just ensure that you comply with the process. Okay, so once the moderation is done, then the process is complete. So now I just want to cover the documents that we require at the education department, right? We require initially 2 what we call certificates, SPMDS certificates. Now, the one certificate is called SPMDS 001, and that certificate we need by the end of April, beginning May. Now, that certificate essentially says, it confirms and validates that you have a performance agreement in place for each employee, and that you do have a personal or professional development plan in place for each of the employees at your school, right? So you'll just indicate it's just a basic form, and then there will be fields that you have to just complete to say, yes, there is a PA in place, there is a PDP in place, everybody has signed the document, everybody has dated the document. And then the principal has to sign that certificate and submit that to us by end April, beginning May. Okay, so your people management coordinator will then request and give a particular date. Okay, then we have a second certificate that we require, and that certificate is in fact due now, because you've just completed the mid-year review. So you've sat with your employees and you've discussed their progress. You've completed C1, and the employee knows exactly what he or she should do for the next 6 months. And so for us to know that you have complied with the regulation, you have to complete SPMDS certificate 002 and then submit that for us. Okay, so at your school, you'll have the minutes on file, and you will have C1 completed and in the employee's personal file as well. Okay. Then the other documents that we require would be at the end of the cycle. So the cycle for SPMDS ends on the 31st of March, right? So we will start requesting the following documents from you at the end of the cycle. Okay, remember you've submitted no documents, especially in our case. I do not collect individual documents because I'm not the accounting officer. The principal is. So all those documents must be on file. My job is just to ensure that it happens and that I need to monitor. So I can call up the files, or when I do, visit schools, I can ask schools to just show me, give me a sample of what is happening. But you as the principal, or you as the supervisor, you the accounting officer, your principal will be the chief accounting officer, and so all those documents must be on file. So at the end of the cycle, what you will then submit to the district office, especially in my case, you would then give us copies of the following documents. One, for each employee, we collect the performance agreement, that work plan, signed and dated. We check to see if it's signed and dated. We collect a copy of the Annex B, which is the personal development plan, also checking to see if it's signed and dated, and if the personal development plan reflects the KRAs and the training needs in terms of the KRAs that are specified. We also collect the C1, that is the review document. So there will be 2 review documents that we expect you to submit. That's C1 that you have completed at the end of September, and then the second C1 you would have completed at the end of the cycle. Then we also need you to submit the C2, which is the scoring document, and that should also be signed and dated. And when you hand in those documents, there must be proof that you have, conducted the moderation process and that there are no irregularities in terms of the actual process. Okay, so those are the documents we collect. Then we also collect the training needs, because once you have appraised your employees, you will then identify areas where that employee requires further training and development, and then we also collect a summary of the training needs that you and your employees have decided upon. Okay, so you will service some of those training needs, and then of course we at the district, those training needs will be captured, and if there are priority needs in terms of the district, they will also appear in what we call the work skills plan. Okay, so that is a summary of the entire process. Short and sweet, so unlike Sharon. Yeah, okay, Fiona joined as well. Yes, pleasure, Walter. Yes, okay, so that's the end of it, guys. I promise I'm just going to do the timeline, and just in summary quickly, the steps is: 1, that you need the performance agreement, the personal development or professional development plan. Then you have your 4 reviews. 2 of those reviews are compulsory. That is the mid-year review and the annual review. The documentation that you must complete is the C1, Annex C1. Then you have to do the final appraisal at the end of the cycle, and you will then score the employee. There is a document where you will do that process, and that is the Annex C2. That is an Excel document, and it will calculate the score for you. After that, you will do the moderation process. So you'll have a moderation committee, and the committee will ensure that the process has been complied with and that the process was indeed fair. And then, of course, I mentioned that each employee should have a minimum overall score of 3. If the score is under 3, you will need another document called a support plan. And that document is key, especially when your employees are underperforming or poor performing, right? So anybody who scores under the 3 must have a support plan in place, and that plan must then be executed the following year, monitored on a quarterly basis, and then if we require feedback, then we'll get that information from you. Okay, and then I mentioned what we need is the 2 certificates, 001 and 002. The one is to say that you have those documents on file, the performance appraisal, the performance agreement, and the personal development plan. And then 002 is due usually this time of the year, where you will again confirm and validate that you have done the mid-year review. And then at the end of the cycle, we ask you to bring all those documents, the performance agreement, Annexure A, the professional development plan, Annexure B, the 2 reviews, the mid-year and the annual review, C1, C1, so there will be 2 C1s, and then of course the scoring document, the appraisal document called C2. So you'll bring all those documents in, we then collect those documents, we capture all the information, and we submit that whole batch to head office, and that goes on file at head office. Okay, and then of course another document we require is the training needs. Okay, so that's the end of the story. And now, Jean, Alison Newman, you joined. You can watch a replay. Thanks for coming online. Miss Simon Starr, doing amazing work there, as always. And then, of course, Dawn Johnson joined. Thanks, Dawn, for joining. And then Angie, Benji is here as well. Thanks, Benji. All my regulars are here. Okay. And Latifa. Thanks, Latifa. Nice to have you here again. Thank you, Sharon. Must be HODs that is on the committee. There's a question from Latifa. Yes. Latifa, if your HODs are, yes, it's good to have independent people on the moderation committee. So your supervisors will be on the committee, your principal or your deputy principal will serve on that committee, and you could have HODs on that committee. Remember, the committee is purely there to verify the information, not to change the scores, just to verify whether the process has been complied with. If there are, you know, if there are problems, then the committee will have to refer it back to the supervisors, but the moderation committee has no right to change the scores. Okay, it's similar to the IQMS moderation committee. Okay, Benji says, I hope that helps, Atiba. Benji says, marking and listening to one of our favorite persons. Thank you, Benji. Of course, you're my favorite person as well. Okay, if there are any other questions, if not, Elizabeth, are you happy with that? Elizabeth has been like pestering me and saying, when are we going to leadership and management? And when are we going to discuss discipline? Okay, yes, Elizabeth, we're going to move on to that area next time. If there are no questions, I'm sort of scrolling here. I'm not good here tonight. I'm scrolling and I don't see anything. Guys, then I'm not going to delay. Yes, just wrapping up. I hope you enjoyed this short and sweet session. And if you have questions, you know, then you can always ask me via the chat. And then I want to say thanks so much for investing in education. It's the 3rd term. It's a crazy term. I am just as tired as you are, and you should, in fact, be more tired than I am. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, still, you know, for showing interest and wanting to upskill yourself and wanting to make sure you know what is happening. And then when the holidays come, I want you to sit back and just enjoy yourself. You know, just take some time for yourself, re-energize yourself, because remember, we can't help other people if we don't feel ourselves. So I'm really in good company, and I thank you for that. And then, of course, we'll be on holiday when it's Heritage Day, and goodness me, Heritage Day just reminds us why we are here and why we need to help to build and what we can celebrate about our heritage and so forth. So on that note, I just want to say, yes, have a super duper Tuesday, and may this week just fly past you so that you can rest next week. Okay? School Corridor says continue to grow, continue to be inspired, and continue to empower yourself and others. Cheers.